Howdy, Full Metal Cowboy Straight shooting a review of Arrow Season 2. After that quaking ending that Season 1 decided to rush its ending with, we now go into Season 2 of Arrow. So, what happened after the events of Season 1? Well, the after effects of Season 1 was to be expected at the beginning of Season 2, but to be honest with you, I had low expectations going into Arrow Season 2, because I found Arrow Season 1 to be quite mediocre. And going into Season 2, I just thought, well, I'm not expecting the best out of this. And I just keep watching, wondering, why is this still going? Well, the CW is to blame, because they love to market this shit. I mean, Arrow did start at a time where superhero films were all the rage. DC also had a cinematic universe that was fresh and new around that time, even though that cinematic franchise is not doing so hot, both critically and, in the sense, production-wise. So they have two universes they're working around with, a cinematic franchise and a television franchise, both that I think are not great. Listen, I'm not saying this to shit on DC because I tend to favor Marvel with their cinematic universe, but hey, they actually have a more successful franchise than what DC is offering. There actually was a time where DC actually had products, animated shows, that were gold. There was such a time, and there were even some films based off DC Comics that were also worth watching. I don't hate everything DC puts out, it's just I would like to see good material from DC-related works these days. Why am I getting that through Marvel? Rambling aside, I will say that it didn't surprise me that the Island flashbacks returned in Season 2, because this is actually a recurring thing now in Arrow, and I was hoping they would not do that as much as they did with Season 1, but, well, the Island backstory really is left unfinished, so of course this was returning in Season 2. And I honestly didn't care, although there were more mysteries to be resolved through these flashbacks, which honestly made me wonder, why are they even jumbling with two narratives, especially when the past narrative keeps bouncing whenever it feels like it? And just like Season 1, the Island flashbacks are just as pace-breaking in Season 2. Now, the action scenes this time around in Season 2 are less shaky than they were in Season 1. Thank God! And because of that, the action scenes can be enjoyed this time in Season 2, unlike Season 1. Although some bad editing is present in Season 2, but far less than what Season 1 had. But it felt forced, because let's just say there's a certain element from Season 1 that felt very insignificant, and is now suddenly a big part with Season 2. Although it was teased in Season 1, it did feel resolved only to somehow make the writers change their mind when they came out with Season 2. And now I shall talk about Thea Queen in Season 2 of Arrow. God, I hated her in Season 2 much more than Season 1. Her relationship with Roy was infuriating to sit through, although I thought it was okay in Season 1, but it is incredibly forced in Season 2. And there are relationship problems in Season 2 between Thea and Roy, and I just thought to myself, why don't they just break up already, because I know what's going to happen. But this is the CW we're talking about. Of course there's going to be some teen drama bullshit in Arrow, and of course it involves Thea Queen, because she's such a young lady who has to be the center of this relationship drama. The more this was going on, the more I'm like, see ya, bitch, I'm out of here. Season 2 also deals with Laurel after the events of Season 1. Now, I understand what she's going through throughout Season 2, but to be perfectly honest with you, I found her more uninteresting in Season 2, despite I never cared for her much in Season 1. And then there's Felicity, who was quite the techie in Season 1, And she quickly became annoying early on in season 2, only for her to be really boring throughout season 2 of Arrow. What is it with Arrow's female characters? They're either really infuriating to sit through, or they're just flat out boring. However, there is one female character I actually thought was alright in season 2, and that is Moira. Even though I found part of her arc in season 2 partially forced. But it is nice that they try to give her something as an after effect from what happened in season 1. So there is at least a plus for Arrow season 2. But that's saying something compared to how much I hated season 2 of Arrow. By far the biggest talking point with Arrow season 2 is Slade Wilson, also known as Deathstroke in some places. Now, some people will actually like his screen time throughout Arrow Season 2. Some may not like how his character is handled. Now, given that this show gives quite a different interpretation of the Green Arrow, people pretty much have to go into Slade Wilson the same way in Arrow. I actually liked the performance by the actor that played him. And I actually thought his entire screen time was worth watching Season 2, but I wish the writing was a lot better. Now, I won't spoil the following, but there is a twist in Arrow Season 2 that lost all credibility in the entire writing of this show. This makes me not care for any improvements in Season 3 onwards. I have been hearing a lot of word of mouth that there is a future season beyond Season 2 that is really bad. And I am anticipating that awful season when I reach it. But I found this to be worse than Arrow Season 1. It's actually a lot more easy to watch now that I'm used to Arrow Season 1, which I found very slow. This doesn't feel as slow as Season 1. There's just a lot of infuriating things to sit through with Arrow Season 2. At least it was somewhat entertaining to some degree. I'm going to be shooting a 2.5 out of 10 for Arrow Season 2. Next in my series of Arrowverse reviews, I'm going to be looking at 3 shows because they actually started after Season 2 of Arrow. I'm going to be looking at Constantine, Season 1 of The Flash, and Season 3 of Arrow. I will review those 3 in particular sometime this year. It's going to be a while until I get to them. And that's my review of Arrow Season 2. So I'll be reloading for my next review, so until then, see you later.